All right, Coach Ruud's here now. Got first question. Joe Nugent, WOWT.
Hey, Barrett. We hear quite a bit about teams making big-time progress between that first and second game. I'm wondering if you felt like that played out. I know points allowed a lot less Northwestern compared to Ohio State, but obviously two different offenses as well. So did you feel like you were able to take advantage of that period?
Yeah, I thought we made progress. I thought we played better from week 1 to week 2. There was Ohio State, you give them credit because they're a very good team. I mean, they're probably a top 5 team nationally. But similar to Northwestern, if you take away 4 or 5 plays, it's a different ball game. And we felt the same way about Northwestern. Guys played hard. They tackled fairly well. A couple sloppy tackles in the second half. But, once again, great defenses don't give up those 4 or 5 little plays. So we just got to tighten that part of it up. But I'm happy with the way guys are working. And I do think there was progress from week 1 to week 2.
Parker Gabriel, Lincoln Journal-Star.
Hey, Barrett. Luke told us after the game that he said his nerves were through the roof before the first drive, and then again coming out of halftime. I'm curious, could you tell in watching him, and how did you just think he sort of handled operationally, starting and playing the whole way for the first time in his career?
Yeah, I mean, far and away his worst drive of the game was the opening drive. So there was probably some nerves there. But I nerves, that happens. I've been doing this for some form of football at a high level for almost 20 years, and I still get really nervous before games, so that happens. But it's just experience. You got to get used to that. I do think once he got through that first drive, he played pretty well. Hey, the nerves are a good thing. You're supposed to be nervous before a big game. But now it's just now he knows he's been there in that situation. He knows how to handle it. And now we expect him not to have that a little bit lackadaisical first drive and play like he did the rest of the game in the entirety.
Colin said yesterday that we all sort of finally got to see what you guys see in every practice with Luke. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I think Colin's spot on. I mean, I would say I was not surprised at all with how Luke played. He's a very good player. He's an active player, has a natural feel for getting to the football. So, what he did Saturday was definitely not expected.
Mitch Sherman, The Athletic.
Hey, Barrett, so I guess a good problem to have when Honus is back. What do you do? I know you had a 3-man rotation last year. Is it as simple as just kind of going back to that situation with the 2 seniors and Luke?
Yeah, it's always a good problem to have when you got a lot of good players to get on the field. And I think all those guys are going to play a lot of football for us. I think it ups the competition in practice, who gets to play the most, that sort of thing. But all 3 of those guys are really good football players. All 3 of those guys prepare really well. And I'm expecting that kind of inner competition to elevate their play even more.
Hey, as a follow-up, you mentioned the first drive of the game with maybe some nerves and Reimer in particular. Did you see any carryover to the first drive of the second half? Anything that happened then that explains why, both halves of that game started the way they did and you played, really solid the rest of the way?
Honestly, that's a good question, Mitch, and I'm not sure. I mean, there was definitely, you could see there was nerves. The first drive, a little bit of hesitation. The second drive, I should say the second half drive, the opening drive of the second half, we're still searching why we didn't start that one better. Because really, you take away the first 2 drives of each half, and it was a pretty solid football game for us. But, the second half drive especially was pretty inexcusable. Just some missed tackles, some sloppiness overall. And I'm not sure where that came from, because usually by the time you get that first hit out of the way, the nerves kind of do go away. So something for us to keep looking at, but definitely got to start each half faster. That's an emphasis this week.
2 more for Barrett. First, Sean Callahan, Husker Online.
Hey, Coach, what have you seen from Penn State when you look at them? And obviously, they're a surprising 0-3. Just what kind of Penn State team do you expect to come in here knowing their backs are against the wall and somewhat you guys are in that same position at 0-2?
Yeah, we expect to see their best team. I think they were they're probably self-admittedly a little bit sloppy versus Indiana, had some turnovers. Really, they played pretty good football versus Ohio State, in all honesty. I think one of the wrinkles, their coordinator came from Minnesota, so you see some of the Minnesota concepts that you saw a year ago, probably a little bit more quarterback run game built in. They got some really good receivers on the outside, including a really good receiving tight end. I know they've been a little bit banged up at running back, but you see a lot of similar concepts that we saw last year at Minnesota, with some new wrinkles built in based on the personnel Penn State has. So we anticipate them playing a really good game. Like you said, Sean, I mean, they're 0-3. They don't think they're an 0-3 team. We're 0-2. We don't think we're an 0-2 team. So you're going to see both teams coming in, ready to play good football.
All right, and last one for Barrett, Sam McEwen, World Herald.
Hey, Barrett. Hey, you're the in-state recruiting guy, and I know you can't go around and watch teams this year because of NCAA regulations, but there've been a lot of live streams this particular year on YouTube and things like that. Do you try to find time on Friday nights to pull up 4 or 5 screens and watch them? I assume you're allowed to do that, and what has that experience been like if you've been doing it?
Yeah, so I mean, for the most part, Sam, what's tough is we do have meetings Friday nights, and I'm getting old, man, so I go to bed pretty early anymore too. But I do try to follow on Twitter, especially these playoffs have been going on. I try to follow the scores. I don't do as many live feeds, but I will look up. A lot of times they do a good job posting some highlights, so I try to stay up to date on what's going on during the playoff race. When we were not playing, when the Big Ten was shut down, I was watching it pretty closely on Huddle. I didn't live stream as much the night of, but I did go on the next morning and watch a lot of games via Huddle. And like you said, I'm the in-state recruiter, but being a lifer here, I enjoy following Nebraska football as a fan anyway. So I'm always trying to stay up to date on the different teams and see how they do. And like I said, a combination of me having meetings Friday night and me being old and going to bed pretty early, I don't get too much live feed, but I do try to follow on Twitter as much as I can.
How good is the collective talent in the state right at this moment compared to, say, when you were in high school?
Well, I like to think we were okay. I do think, I do think the talent's really been pretty good. I think compared to when I was coming up, I think the metro area especially has gotten quite a bit better. I think Lincoln, when I was coming up, really controlled state football a little bit more. We obviously, Creighton Prep was always very good when I played, Papillion La Vista, but I think Omaha's been a little bit ahead of late. But there's good talent in the state, and even when you go to West Nebraska and you go up north, there's becoming more and more talent all over, and it's good for us to see, because I love how those in-state kids are brought up, and I think most of them are still multi-sport guys, which I love, that are competitors year round, and you're seeing a lot of really good football on a weekend-to-weekend basis here in Nebraska.
Thanks, Barrett.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Barrett.
Thanks.
We'll have players.